What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Hoops Crush podcast. This is episode 17 already. I am Eric Brandt, and I'm joined by the one and only Crushables, Brady Parks. How you doing, Brady?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. We have a ton to talk about. Our last episode was prior to the trade deadline, so I want to get your thoughts on a bunch of trades that went down and the inactivity of the Portland Trailblazers. And then, we talk about All Star Weekend and a few other things as well. So we'll just really quickly breeze through. We usually go through the Blazer games. They played 4 games since we last talked. Luckily, there's been a lot of time off, so we haven't really missed a ton of games. And the games that they did have were not good. They blow a 23-point lead to the Detroit Pistons. Did you watch that game, Brady?
No, and the reason why is because my daughter at the moment is going through sleep regression, and I literally could
Oh
not
no,
watch the game because of how bad of a night she was having. So missed it,
that's a bummer.
unfortunately. And then of course the Timberwolves games I don't watch because I can't. I get blacked
Hmm.
out. And then the Pelicans and the Blazers game, you're not gonna believe it. I fell asleep at halftime.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Well, you didn't miss much. It was a
yeah.
low-scoring game in that one. So the Blazers, if they're going for the tank again this season, uh, coming from 23 points up to get a defeat there was probably a good thing. They're still mathematically close to the Charlotte Hornets for the fourth best lottery odds, currently in fifth. So it might have been a good loss at the end of the season, but it's just bad when you're up 23 against the worst team in the league.
Yeah,
And
I
you
know
blow it
Jeremy
at
Grant had
home
a.
too.
I know Grant went off 40 for 49. That's like
Yeah,
about all
Jeremy
I know about this game.
Jeremy had 49 in that one. Chris Murray played well, 5 of 6 shooting. Jabari Walker 17 and 11. Yeah, it was a pretty good performance from the Blazers. They just gave up 27 and 22 to Duran, who had a monster game. And I think that was the game Ivy went like 7 for 7 from three or something, but hardly made any 2-point shots. Just a weird game, but and then they lose that low scoring game to the Pelicans. Trey Murphy has 24 points. No Ant, no Scoot in that one, so it's kind of a boring game. And then back to back games against the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards goes off in both of them. I think he had combined 70 some points, 75, 76 points in the 2 games. Aiton had a really good first game, 22 and 16. Not so good in the second game. Scoot um, had 14 and 9 in the first one. But they get blown out headed into the All Star break. They're now 15 and 39 on the season. So not great there either. What are your just overall thoughts on where the Blazers are at in the standings right now and looking forward to the second half of the season?
So obviously, kind of to be expected. There was some thoughts that maybe this team could be a play-in team, but I think early on in the season we found out that was not going to be the case. And this is kind of where I figured they would be at this point. It is exciting that Scoot will start for the rest of the season, so that's great to see. I know some Blazers fans are still like mad at that, which I don't truly understand. It makes no sense. Like, he is the future. Like, we gotta see what this guy has, of course. But yeah, I mean, right now, basically, all I'm looking forward to at the end of the season is watching Scoot. That's literally, and then Simons, of course. Sharp may not be back this season. I'm not really sure. I
I
think he'll
doubt
be.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt he'll be back. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to seeing the young guys play, and that's basically all you can look forward to as a rebuilding team that's not good right now.
Yeah, I think for me, Scoot and Simons just getting as much playing time as possible together, trying to see not only if it can work. I don't think you're going to know for sure this season, but just getting them as sped up as possible and just trying to develop that relationship and that on court duo. I think that's the basically the only thing that matters the rest of the season.
Which, by the way, you guys probably know who I'm talking about when I say this, because it was a tweet the other night, and it was something about, I think in one of the Timberwolves games they like outscored us like by 30 points, and people are saying, I hope the people that wanted Scoot to start are happy. Like, who cares, man? Like, we're a bad
Yeah,
team anyway. Scoot needs to start. Like, if we're gonna be any good in the future, Scoot
Mhm.
needs to start. Like, it's not going to be him coming off the bench for the rest of his career if we're ever going to be anything. Like, it made no sense to me. Like, people actually care that Scoot's starting now or coming off the bench. Like, or as far as people being mad that he's starting, and it's just a dumb situation that people. I don't know. It's dumb.
We're 24 games under 500, one of the
Yeah,
worst
like
teams
who
in the league.
cares?
Yeah, we're gonna get blown out by the number one team in the West. Like it's gonna
I
happen.
don't
So
think it mattered if Scoot was
uh,
starting or not. Like
yeah,
it's just so
yeah, they
stupid.
came out on fire. It's one of those games where you kind of hope that Minnesota's sleepwalking into the All Star break. They've already kind of checked out, but they definitely did not. They took care of business, and that's props to them, man. Because a lot of teams right before the All Star break just kind of pack it in and lose a game they shouldn't to a team like the Blazers. So for them to come in and just stomp on us right away. I know the Blazers cut it to I think 8 at one point, had a 3-point shot to tie it or to cut it to 5 at one point that didn't go in. So also props to the Blazers for finding a way to kind of battle back and make that a game. But I was impressed with Minnesota just coming in and taking care of business, and they look dang good heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, Edwards decided to, take a break, not against us, but during the All Star, events, as we'll talk
Oh
about.
man, yeah. Oh yeah, we got to mention that. All right, but the trade deadline saw our Portland Trailblazers. We've been talking about it for pretty much since we started Hoops Crush. What the Blazers should do this season in terms of trades. They do none of that. um, so I'm sure both of us were equally disappointed in that. But they decide to keep Malcolm Brogdon, and not only do they keep Malcolm Brogdon, but then they also announce that he's hurt and out for 2 weeks and won't even be playing or helping the team on the court at all. So once again, might be a good thing if he's just sitting out. But if we just kept him to trade him this offseason, seems kind of silly if we're gonna have him not play much the rest of the season.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I know I mentioned when we were talking about the deadline that I had a feeling it was going to be a quiet deadline,
Yeah,
which
for
it ended
sure.
up being. It kind of had a weird vibe that it was going to be, but then I was like, well, it's the NBA deadline. It usually never disappoints. It was disappointing, which it's, for years it hasn't been disappointing, so I don't think it's like that big of a deal. But as far as Portland doing nothing, well, they did do something, of course. They traded for Banton
Yeah.
at the very end, which was very out of nowhere. I don't think anyone really saw that coming. But yeah, keeping Brogdon, it was really disappointed. I know a ton of people are saying, well, it was a quiet deadline. Not a lot of teams were offering picks or whatever, and you could just always get another pick in the offseason, and that's totally fine. Brogdon's gonna be out for 2 weeks. At this point, I I don't agree with, a lot of the decisions Joe Cronin has made. A lot of people find excuses for, what he's done or what he hasn't done. And we're just going to find out what happens. And eventually, I assume the excuses will stop, or you and I and Tori and everyone else that is against Cronin will be the first to apologize if he does do something that, makes sense for the organization. But so far, in my opinion, as we all know, a lot of things he's done have made no sense and have been disappointing moves and have not worked in our favor. So I don't know. I'm just gonna be in wait and see mode, I guess, and wait for this master plan.
Yeah. Well, with Cronin, my thing is he could still pull out of it, right? He could still make it work what he did, but he makes it so much harder on himself. I feel like because now we have to cut. I have the exact number here. So heading into the summer right now. So the other thing that happened was they signed Duop Reith finally to an actual contract, and it's fully guaranteed for next year. So if you include the 2 lottery picks we currently have, and we don't move up in the lottery, so our pick is 5th. So this number gets a little smaller if we fall to like 7th or something, but that would be bad for our rebuild. Um, and the Warriors pick could get worse as it goes along, as it has been getting worse the last couple weeks. But right now, just slotting them in at the 5th and 13th spots. That means we have 15 players under contract, assuming they keep both Jabari Walker and Tamani Kamara. I don't see why they would waive them. Um, but Banton would have to go then, and we'd have to eat a couple 100,000 of guaranteed money to him next year. Uh, but that's 15 guys, not including our second round picks. And we're over the tax by $6,754,236. So that Joe's not only going to have to trade Malcolm this offseason, most likely, but he's going to have to find a way to shed at least 6.7 million to get the team under that number. And that's also going to limit other moves. Whereas if you would have traded Brogdon now, got for an expiring contract, even if you got less in terms of pick value that you would this summer, your whole offseason is completely different because you're 20 some million under the cap and not under the cap, under the tax. And you can do stuff like not worry about uh signing a player and how you're going to cut that salary later on, or using a mid-level exception, or taking back more money in a trade, which if you're under the tax, you can in the new CBA take back a lot more in a trade than you used to be able to. And there's going to be a lot of teams trying to dump salary this summer. So I feel like the ability to dump salary is going to be very costly because there's going to be so many teams that are trying to do it, and there's only a few teams that have cap space or trade exceptions that can bring on contracts without giving up much in return. And so I think it's just a bad mix of Joe just made it very difficult to pull it out because I don't see any way this team's a tax team after being one of the worst teams in the league next year. So he could do it. He could surprise us. We could all say, "Hey, good job, Joe." But like, he set himself up for failure, in my opinion, and he also set himself up to probably have to salary dump one of Robert Williams or Matisse Thybulle, and then that, in retrospect, makes both the trade for Robert Williams look worse, and or the decision to match the contract on Matisse Thybulle pretty bad if you end up having to, please don't attach an asset to get rid of one of those guys. But if you have to give away one of those guys for nothing just because you didn't trade Malcolm at the deadline, I think the opportunity cost by not doing so outweighs any positives that he could do this summer. So it's going to be very difficult in my mind to pull out of this. But I'm ready for it. I'm ready for Joe to do something. But if he doesn't, man, he's just further digging that hole for us, and it's going to be harder to rebuild.
This sounds like a recipe for a bad trade this offseason. And
Yes.
I'm assuming, but I don't know for sure. I'm assuming no one can give him a pass if we make a bad trade with
Oh,
Brogdon. Like, there's no way, right? Like, there's absolutely
I
no
wouldn't
way.
say
Yeah,
that.
like what is the excuse going to be next? Like, if we do end up salary dumping Brogdon or whatever it may be, whoever it is, and we get, and again, if it does end up being a first round pick back or whatever, or it's a good return, then that's fine. But if it does end up being like just a, bad trade on paper, like similar to CJ, or not CJ, sorry, the Covington and Norm Powell trade, but everyone said that was because of O'Shea, right? He had to clean up his mess. There's no attachment here with that. Everything has been Cronin's decisions, so that excuse cannot come, which I'm glad. Um, we'll see. We'll just see what happens, man. And I really hope he does some good things this offseason because I'm tired of everyone having to argue about it. I want us to all be, collective and happy about where this organization is going. But it's definitely a civil war right now between us Blazers fans. 'Cause a lot of people, agree with a lot of the things he's done, and a lot of us disagree with what he's done so far, and just give him excuse after excuse. So it's just a matter of wait and see mode at this point.
Yeah, and it's just with with all his moves, it's panned as like setting something up for the next opportunity, right?
Every
It's
time.
always it's always next time. It's always next time. Whereas I look at it like you just made the next time. You're promising a next time, but you made it like really tough to pull that out. And I just I worry because he doesn't have any experience, and then he says this stuff like, well, I don't have any choice. I have to get this done this summer, last summer, right? and he says I have to do it, and then he doesn't, and then he's like, well, I'm young, I make mistakes, and I'm learning on the job. It's like we don't have that leeway. Like we've run out of that leeway if we want to rebuild this thing the right way right now. So um, yeah, if you get to a point where you're a rebuilding team and you're giving away assets instead
Oh
of
my
putting
gosh,
yourself
bro.
in a situation where you're acquiring assets for taking on salary, that's like the worst possible scenario in my mind from the Dame trade till now.
I
And I was good.
I usually never engage with people on Twitter because I just think it's a waste of time to argue with people on Twitter. But if, for whatever reason, this offseason, if Cronin has to attach an asset to get rid of anybody or does something stupid, and there's people actually, agreeing with him, or I will argue with people on Twitter, which is something
Yeah.
I normally don't do. But, like, bro, at what point can we stop giving this guy, like, a pass and say, oh, well, it wasn't his fault. He had no choice, or he couldn't do anything. No teams
Mhm.
were offering first round picks at the deadline, or whatever. It's so stupid, and I'm over it. And obviously, it's not like a crazy threat because who cares if I'm arguing with people on Twitter? But
Right, right.
like, I'm
I,
just so
well,
sick of it. That's where I'm at. Like, if people are really making excuses for him this summer, if we do something dumb, uh, I'm gonna be very upset.
well, I'm torn now because the Blazers are my favorite team. I want them to win a championship. I want to see it in my lifetime before I die. That was like I don't know. It would mean so much to me personally, as well as all other Blazer fans, I imagine. But I also want to see you get into it with people on Twitter. So that might be a fun uh you
Yeah, I
know
usually never. I see
puzzle.
so many stupid tweets, whether it's from other fan bases or Blazers fans in general. And sometimes I want to say something, but I'm just like, nah, man, it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
Like arguing with people over the internet's just a waste of time.
I don't mind the other fan bases, like, I just brush that off really because you don't watch team like, no one's watching Portland this year, right?
Yeah,
So, like, they're just looking at Scoot stats or whatever,
not
like,
even
looking,
Blazers
"Oh,
fans are
yeah,
watching Portland this
yeah.
year, as
Oh,
there was a
yeah.
report
Did you see the
today.
numbers? Yeah,
Yeah, down 49% or something like that. Not
yeah.
surprising. I mean, you traded the franchise icon
Mhm.
away, and a lot of people are upset with that. And the team's not very good, so it was to be expected, I think.
Yeah, this is, they're framing it like this is exactly what they were hoping for, but this is really bad for what they failed in every one of their goals. They really wanted to show people that they were going to be good and not necessarily like playoff good or anything, but at least like in the running for a playoff in berth and just like better than what people expected. And they tried to set the expectations really low so that when they were decent, that it would happen. But man, they've just gotten obliterated in some of these games, and then they look good for a couple weeks, and then Joe Cronin's like, "Oh, I'm happy where we're at, and like I want to see with this team gel." It's like, what are you talking about?
I didn't even watch the press conference because
Yeah,
I'm so sick of what that guy
yeah.
says.
You want to see a team gel with like a 31-year-old vet guard that's blocking your guards if they're healthy? Like, I don't know, man. It's just like everything just seems weird with this
Feels
organization right now.
directionless. Feels
Yeah,
really directionless.
yeah.
Just
But
not where we want to
so
be.
so what did you think of Delano Banton, that acquisition?
I was like, at first, my first initial thought was like, did we really just like help the Celtics free up a roster spot? Like that's what
Mm,
I thought, and I was like, why are we giving them a second round pick if that's the case? But it sounds like we actually wanted Delano Banton, and we got him for it's whatever. Like we didn't give up a lot to get him or whatever,
yeah, a
but
pick's not going to convey, so it
yeah.
probably won't matter.
Sure, it's cool, I guess. I mean,
Mm.
he's like isn't he like 6'6" or 6'7" or something like that? Or my
He's like 6'8", yeah.
Oh yeah, so like if he were to work out, that's great because that's where the league is going. These tall guards, but he hasn't really been able to gel very many places. I think he had a couple bright spots in Toronto, but went to Boston. I don't think he really did much there. I remember hitting the 3 point, hitting a 3 point shot in the Pelicans game, and outside of that, doing nothing. And then I don't know what he did in the Timberwolves game. So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine for what this rest of the season is probably going to be. They needed another ball handler too with the injuries. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. It's just like I said, you probably can't keep him just because of roster spots. And if you trade someone, I mean, you might free up a roster spot, but I don't think he's like really critical moving forward. But if you don't keep him past the season, you just brought more money in for next season. Like I said, it's not a lot, but it's still a little bit. And between the Eric Bledsoe dead money that's still on the cap, and the Didi Luzada dead money, and then this little bit of dead money potentially, it just when you're trying to be cheap and kind of avoid the tax and stuff, the little stuff adds up. And so that part of it didn't make sense to me. But Delano as a flyer for basically nothing, I was fine with. At least we made some move, right? Like something to talk about. Um, what did you really think about? Like, who was your big winner at the trade deadline? Yeah, I know you said it was dead. I actually thought it was really fun because it wasn't like a star trade or anything, but there were a ton of little trades, and I think a lot of them are going to be really good moves in the long run. Um, but who was your big winner from the trade deadline?
Dallas Mavericks, man. Getting Gafford and PJ Washington when their asset pool is very limited.
Mhm.
Really happy for Luka Doncic and the Mavericks organization getting that done, because Gafford is someone, as Blazers fans, we've wanted as our backup center to Nurk when we were still thinking about Dame staying here. But I think him in Dallas is perfect because they've needed another reliable big. Dwight Powell is someone they've had to rely on, and he's just not that great. Derek Lively has been awesome for them. I think Daniel Gafford is exactly what they needed, and another wing like PJ Washington. Of course, they had to trade Dorian Finney-Smith to get Kyrie Irving, so they kind of replaced PJ Washington, or replaced Finney-Smith with Washington. Really, really solid trade for the Mavericks. Absolutely loved both of those trades. And again, they didn't have to give up a ton to make it happen either. And of course, the Knicks, and again, some of the big moves happened before the deadline even, was here. So like, OG and Siakam were traded, of course. But
Mhm.
the Knicks getting OG and Anunoby earlier in the year, and then they trade Quentin Grimes in only some seconds to get Bojan and Alec Burks in the same trade, so that was awesome as well. Yeah, so the Knicks and the Mavericks come out as clear winners for me, and then really like the Timberwolves also getting Monte Morris. Thought that was exactly what they needed. They just extended Mike Conley today as well. So those are like two perfect point guards, I think, for them going forward. As obviously, if you're the Timberwolves, you prefer to have Anthony Edwards to be the scorer there. So you have your point guards who can facilitate and score when they need to. Cat is that second guy you want to score who dropped 50 in the All-Star game. Um, so yeah, I think those are the three trades that I liked a lot. I'm sure I'm forgetting about one at the moment, but yeah, I think Mavericks and Knicks, of course, they were the two biggest trades, and I think they're the clear winners.
Yeah, those were my two winners as well. Everything you said about Gafford, he's crushing it right now. And that's just a really good pickup. And PJ Washington, um, he's been struggling offensively this season, but man, that guy is a really underrated defender, and you can tell already how much tougher the Mavs are going to be as an out in the playoffs just because of those moves. And yeah, they gave up a 2027 first. That's only I think top two protected or something to make it happen. But I don't really mind the aggressiveness. They saw a window, identified some players that could help them. Both of them are still under contract for a couple of years. PJ Washington still 4 years, I believe, 3 or 4 years.
And he just signed an extension, so
Yeah. So you get a couple players that are locked in, um, and I think are tremendous fits next to Luca and Kyrie. You got to beef up your front line if you want to make that backcourt work, and they did just that.
yeah, awesome.
The Knicks to not give up any of their first and get Bojan, I think was a really good move. They of course give up Quentin Grimes, but it just wasn't seemingly working out there. But yeah, I agree. They made a bunch of moves. Yeah, giving up quickly is probably the toughest part about all their moves they made. But OG's been hurt, so you got to worry about his health. But that mix, if everyone's healthy, I think they could be a dark horse to make the Eastern Conference Finals. And yeah, so really good move there. I also a team we talked about being intrigued on what they were going to do at the deadline, and we kind of mentioned that look for them to trade for a player that is on an expiring, because then they could possibly still use all their cap space or re-sign that player this summer if it works out. And that's the 76ers getting Buddy Hield. I thought Buddy, if Embiid's healthy, that's like a really good backcourt mate for Tyrese Maxey. They didn't give up a lot, only second round picks, and like Korkmaz and stuff like that. So Marcus Morris is expiring. So yeah, nothing really that hurts them rotation wise. And then you add a shooter like Buddy Hield to the mix. I thought that was a really good move by the 76ers. What'd you think of that one?
Yeah, forgot about that one. That was a great move as well. It was like Buddy Hield, and then you had the Olynyk and the Obagi trade as well, which I thought that was a decent move as well. If Toronto was making an Obagi maybe developing there, because he's another guy that kind of fits on that Barnes and quickly Barrett timeline. Like if
Mm-hmm.
that all works out, that's great. But back to the 76ers with Buddy Hield. Obviously, I think he's a player the 76ers should have wanted to get for a long time. If it, even when they had Ben Simmons, I think that was someone they wanted more shooting, of course, around Ben Simmons. So they finally get him, and I think it makes a ton of sense. Gave up 2 seconds, I believe, to get him. So you have the ability to re-sign him or let him go, and I think he'll be a terrific, another guard for them to score. So you got a lot of scorers over there on that roster with Oubre, Buddy Hield. When Embiid is back, this Philadelphia team is going to be interesting. I definitely think they're contender this year. But what Morey does this offseason, if, they're eliminated in round 2 again, which you have to hope Joel Embiid has the patience for that, which I assume he will, just because there's, the ability has a team, or the team that has the ability to do a lot of things this offseason. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Eastern Conference race has me intrigued, for sure.
Oh, it's going to be so fun down the stretch here.
Yeah.
Trying to think what. Yeah, there was a lot of like salary dump trades. Nothing really
Yeah, it was
probably worth mentioning. But
yeah.
the other trade, or there's two other trades I want to get your thoughts on. One, you did a rebuild for the Thunder after this trade, so go check that out on Crushables channel if you haven't already. But that's the Thunder making a play. They finally make a trade using some of their picks, and I mean, it's only a couple second rounders, but Gordon Hayward is the guy they get instead of someone a little better. But what do you think of that move?
Yeah, I was like, at first I was like, man, that's kind of weird. Gordon Hayward being traded for in 2024. Did not think that would happen. The
Yeah,
man has had
with
a lot of,
value.
yeah, a lot of health issues. The Thunder give up a couple of guys that probably were never going to be long term in the rotation, like Trey Mann, Mecic, I believe, in the trade, and then Bertan's contract, of course, they were just going to eventually get rid of anyway.
Mhm.
Hayward's also a big expiring, so I don't know what the Thunder's cap situation. I believe the Thunder are going to have cap space this offseason,
Yeah,
right?
I think it sets them up to potentially have cap
Yeah,
space. Yeah,
so they are going to be able to do something with that. And Gordon Hayward's a vet that can, doesn't have a ton of playoff experience. I believe he's only played in like 2 series, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's played in more, but I remember the Clippers series a long time ago versus the Jazz versus the Clippers. But outside of that, I don't remember what else Gordon Hayward's done in the playoffs. But yeah, I guess he's a vet that's played in the playoffs a little bit. So another guy that can help them once they're in, the playoffs.
yeah. If he's healthy, that's a good like scorer. He's a decent player. Just kind of a weird move, but yeah, like you said, it's potentially setting up them to have a really busy off season and look for them to make a ton of moves, both acquiring assets and maneuvering around the draft board like they did last year. They use some of their cap space for a trade exception to take on Berton's contract to begin with, to move up a couple spots and get their guy. I'm blanking on his name. The guard from Cason Wallace. And so they're going to be doing stuff like that multiple times this summer again. So look for that. And then,
Also, Trey Mann balling out for the Hornets
oh
right
yeah,
now.
Trey Man's crushing it on the
Don't look now;
Hornets.
they're on a 3-game win streak.
Yeah, and Grant Williams is talking like he's like changed the whole direction of their franchise. Um, but and he's talking crap about the Mavericks organization too. It's always funny when players leave and they
Yeah.
act like that. But yeah, the only other trade I really want to talk about is the Phoenix Suns. Um,
Oh yeah.
like Royce O'Neal, of course, was their plan B. I think they wanted to get Miles Bridges. I don't know if they backed out because of public potential backlash or what, or if Miles Bridges really wanted to stay in Charlotte. um, maybe the only thing I can think of is if he was traded, he loses bird rights. So the Pistons wouldn't have been able to sign him for very much, and then maybe worry about getting another contract from other teams, despite how good he is, because of the off court stuff. So maybe he thought Charlotte would re-sign him, and that's his only chance of getting a decent sized contract to make up some of that money he lost when he was a jackass. But um, yeah, but then they get David Roddy too. It's just like a weird trade. I thought they needed a backup big and a point guard type player, and instead they get two wings. What do you think of those moves?
Yeah. Did they? I think they gave up 2 seconds to get that done, right? Or was
Mhm.
it just one? Yeah. So
It
Royce
was a
O'Neal,
swap too, I think.
Royce O'Neal, pretty good acquisition. David Roddy, don't know a ton about him. I know he's still pretty decently young, but Royce O'Neal is someone which I remember. I don't remember what game it was. I think it was the Warriors Nets game. Royce O'Neal was just lighting it up, could not miss from three. So yeah, he's a terrific acquisition for the Suns that needed another wing in their rotation for the playoffs. But yeah, not getting a big sucks. Again, we thought they were going to get Miles Bridges because that's just what all the rumors were saying. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Miles Bridges. I mentioned today that, or I think in the other day when I was doing a Hornets video, I mentioned if I was a betting man, I don't think he'll be back. But someone had said, which I didn't know he said this. He said that he wants to resign to
Mhm.
repay the Hornets for sticking by his side through all of his, off-court antics or whatever. So maybe that's the case, and he does intend to resign. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Like I said, I think that's him realizing that that's his only chance of getting paid. He might get like a small contract somewhere else, of course. Like he's good enough to probably have at least a team justify signing him. But I think if he stays in Charlotte, they've already dealt with it. So I mean, they're not going to get a ton more backlash for re-signing him. Um, they should, but they're not going to. So I think he and his agent played this the right way if he wants to get paid.
Which he's with
Uh,
Clutch Sports, isn't he?
I'm not sure who he's through.
Pretty sure he's with Clutch, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. I could be wrong though.
yeah, maybe because he's buddies with all those guys. So makes sense. Um, and then so to wrap up the trade deadline, so Crushables has a bunch of videos over on his channel. Um, you did a Detroit rebuild after their trade deadline. Um, you also had an interesting video about Paul George potentially to the 76ers
Yeah,
this
I saw
summer.
the report that the 76ers may turn their attention to Paul George if he were to not resign with LA, which I don't know. It just feels like that's not going to happen, but it was a fun
Yeah,
video
but that
regardless.
would be a crazy that would be one of those crazy off-season moments if that happens. So
Yeah.
that'd be kind of fun, and that would definitely be intriguing to watch Paul George with Embiid and Maxi and stuff. Um, and then yeah, so it comes out a few days after the trade deadline that the Golden State Warriors
Oh, yeah.
tried to convince LeBron James to get traded to the Warriors or ask for a trade to the Warriors. They first call the Lakers. The Lakers tell them to go talk to Rich Paul because they're not trading him unless LeBron demands it or whatever, or says that he's for sure not resigning in the offseason. and I don't think this ever got close to happening. But just the fact that the Warriors tried to do it is very interesting, Brady. Like, what did you think when you heard that news?
I was surprised, and then I was like, it does make sense just based off what LeBron has done on off the court with so many signals that hey, go trade for DeJounte Murray or go make this move or whatever. And I do find it very interesting that the Lakers weren't like, oh, we're not trading him. That's never gonna happen. They're just like, I don't know, go ask LeBron. Like I,
Well,
you could
they're
tell
kind of
there's
worried about the offseason. Yeah.
yeah, you could tell there's some friction there. LeBron's offseason is going to be very interesting. There's like so many options he could go with, of course, which I definitely think this is the least likely, but he could decide to retire, which I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. He said he was thinking about retiring last offseason. Again, I don't know if that was true or not, but he can go play with his son. It'll be interesting to see how many teams like maybe just draft Bronny if like there's a team that drafts Bronny in the first round just because they think they're getting LeBron or something crazy like that.
I feel
And
like
then
that's going to be the Lakers' strategy this summer. Is
that
just
could be. It
get
could be.
Bronny at all costs and
And
then just have him resign.
the Warriors, I believe, their picks are they don't have a ton of picks in this draft, but they did get a pick from the Pacers for Corey Joseph. So I don't know if that's their maneuver to try to get Bronny James or whatever. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Steph and LeBron would have been a lot of fun. I just don't think LeBron. I don't know. I just don't know if he'd be really interested in moving, to San Fran. But
Well, it's a little different because obviously LeBron is pushing 40 and
yeah, for
Steph
sure.
is getting up there in age. But to me, it was like my first thought was, does LeBron really want to get the same heat KD got
Oh
by
yeah, that too.
joining the Warriors and have like even if he wins a title there, it'd be an incredible accomplishment winning another title with a fourth team. But man, I just think if he has to join the Warriors to do that, I just think it would almost be a bad part of his legacy.
What does
Uh,
even a 39-year-old LeBron trade look like anyway? Like, is the Warriors giving up like Kuminga in that situation or like picks? It's so weird.
I
I don't even know what it would have been. The trade would have been. I imagine Wiggins' contract is in there because you assuming you're keeping Draymond Green, but outside of that, it would be very interesting to see what that trade would have even looked like.
yeah, I think you got to keep Dre and Steph. Maybe it's Clay that goes out.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think yeah, they'd build some sort of package around Moody, Kaminga, and Wiggins, and
Podziemski
then
maybe.
yeah, that Chris Paul's salary they could have added to
That
there as
too.
well.
Forgot about that.
So yeah, the Lakers probably could have cleaned up. I think the Warriors could have called the Blazers and made their 2024 unprotected, and that would have freed
Man,
up.
that would have been a crazy gamble for them to take, but it would have made
Yeah,
sense because LeBron
yeah.
and Steph. So
I mean, they're now towards the end of the lottery, so I don't think they're quite as risky to do something like that. But yeah, they probably would have given a 2026 first, Kaminga, Moody, and then salary filler, which is, I mean, obviously not enough for LeBron, but I mean, if you're the Lakers and you're going to lose him this offseason potentially, I don't think it's like the worst thing to take advantage of it.
yeah,
But yeah, just I thought that was like crazy. I'm surprised it came out. But and like you said, it's a little surprising some of the details, like the Lakers are just like that. But I think clearly they want to keep LeBron, and they know they need to get Bronny this offseason. I think that'll be their play. They're just going to get Bronny, whatever it takes, whether they have to draft him in the first round or whatever. But because they could potentially have their pick. New Orleans
the
has a
Pelicans can defer it or whatever.
yeah, they can choose whether to keep it or push it to 2025.
Which I imagine they'll push it to 2025. I think it makes more sense. I
Yeah,
guess the
because
Lakers are in the play-in at the time, but I imagine they'll get in the playoffs. I mean, it's LeBron
yeah.
James.
hmm But if yeah, if I mean LeBron's like I said going to be 40, so he's you got to think at some point that pick might be a lottery pick, and with Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, and stuff in the
Plus, yeah,
draft
that
next
draft is
year.
much better. And if
Yeah.
LeBron does leave, that pick looks much better in
Mhm.
2025 potentially. Don't know what the
Yeah.
Lakers are going to be doing. Yeah, I think it makes way more sense for the
Mhm.
Pelicans to defer that pick. I don't
Yeah.
know what the deadline is for them to make that decision, but I would take it as far as you have to that deadline,
Yeah.
depending on when it is. I don't even know when it is.
And then so Crushables also did a video on the if LeBron got traded to the Warriors.
Yeah, once that
So
report came out, I was like, yeah, I got to do a video on that.
that was a very fun video. So go check out all of his stuff
Hmm.
on his channel. All right, so now let's get to All-Star Weekend. We have um well, Sharp was supposed to play in the Rising Stars. Unfortunately, he's hurt. But Scoot plays. What did you think of Scoot on Friday night? Did you have a chance to watch him?
Yeah, I did. It was another night with my daughter though, so I was, in and out of the game. I was trying to get her to sleep, and she was refusing, so I had to go lay down with her. But at times I was able to watch Scoot, and I barely got to watch any other games. I was just mainly focused on Scoot that night. Him cooking Chet was kind of fun, and then I
Yeah,
know he had a pull up mid range, and I know he ended up finishing with like over 10, or was it 10 on the
they
dot? I
got
don't.
10. Yeah,
Yeah.
on only
Um,
4 shots, I think.
I missed a lot of his buckets. I saw those two, which really sucked because I was trying to watch it, but
Yeah.
family duties or whatever. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it was fun seeing him in there. It would have been really awesome to see Sharp there as well. Sharp did win. He didn't have to do anything to win it,
He
but
was on the winning team. Yeah,
yeah, he was there. So, but
yeah.
yeah.
Benedict Mathurin was going talking crap to everyone like it was Game 7 of the finals or something. Yeah, so you have that Friday night, and then so I am interested to see what you say, because I really respect your opinion, and I know at times the public will all say the same thing, and it gets monotonous in my mind. Like it just like people just say stuff to say it. I feel like so the dunk contest was not good. But like, do you think it's like trash and needs to go away and all this stuff, or do you still enjoy watching it sometimes, or do you just need better players in it, or what do you think the problem is, or do you think it's a problem at all?
So dunk contests. Obviously, there was a few other events which we'll talk about. Dunk contest being the last event of the night. I will be completely transparent with you. I was genuinely very, very bored watching it. It was one of the worst dunk contests I feel like I've watched in a while. It's just been bad, man. None of the dunks really excited me that much. I was actually genuinely excited that Jalen Brown, we got an all-star in the dunk contest, and dude, his dunks were terrible. Like,
Well,
uh, I hated him. I did not like any of the dunks he did. Jumping over a 5'3" or however tall Kai Snet is, I don't know. And him sitting down. And then I don't even think he deserved to make it to the finals. The scoring was so weird as well. Jacob Toppin, I believe his name was, actually had a genuinely, pretty nice dunk. And I don't know. I don't know if it's gotten to the point that every dunk has just been done, which I don't know if you can truly say that because things are invented all the time. So you have to
yeah,
imagine there's some crazy things still not that haven't been done. And then jumping over Shaq, that's been done a lot. That was done quite a bit.
the jumping over people is just
Yeah,
played out, I think.
yeah. So I was genuinely bored. Do I think it should go away? Not necessarily, because it's historic and it's been there for years. Uh, I just don't. I don't. When it comes to All Star Weekend, there's a lot of problems with it. I don't know how you fix it. I know the NBA has tried, which I commend them for trying. Just like the NFL, they're having the same problem with their Pro Bowl game. It's just like, I don't know, man. It just seems like All Star games aren't fun, or All Star events usually aren't that great, and it's just kind of how it is. The 3-point contest is fine, of course, that's fun.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and I did like the Sabrina versus Steph thing. I thought that was really cool as well. But yeah, the dunk contest, I was very bored watching. I was really disappointed.
For me, it's obviously I think you mentioned Jalen Brown doing it. I think there needs to be, you know, Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, Clyde Drexler, um, like Kobe, uh, Blake Griffin. It,
I'm still mad we didn't get Sharp, man. I don't know what he would have done,
Hmm.
but I just had a
Yeah,
feeling he would have been
when he's
awesome in
healthy
the
last year.
yeah.
It's just like I don't know, Vince Carter. Like it needs the star power. I think it just. I mean, even so, the Levine Gordon one. I mean, no one really cared that much about those two players prior to that. So you wouldn't necessarily say either of those guys were a star when that dunk contest happened, but they just wowed everyone. So you need either that or you need the stars. But at the same time, Jalen Brown's getting killed for being like his
Oh
dunks in
yeah.
the dunk contest, right? And this guy, I mean, I don't feel sorry for him or whatever because I think he's the highest paid player in the NBA. But this guy, like Jalen Brown, like we finally have someone do it, and he just takes a bunch of heat and just gets crapped on, and then like everyone thinks he sucks, like in on the real like he's the second best player for years now on one of the best teams in the league, and this guy just everyone thinks he's trash. Like, it's just weird to me that we like are begging for stars to do it. I'm not saying Jalen Brown's a star necessarily, but like we finally get someone who's willing to do it, and you hope that that would encourage more players to be competitive and do it. But instead, they're just going to be like, well, Jalen Brown decided to do it, and look how he got crapped on. Like, why would I want to
Yeah,
subject
that's true.
myself to that scrutiny? So it's kind of a double edged sword, I think, when we're talking about how laughable Jalen Brown's dunks were or attempts were when like we should be applauding him for actually putting himself out there to do it.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely a good point. Yeah, I'm not one of the people that think Jalen Brown sucks or he's a bad player. I know there's people that crap on him all the time. I actually like his game a lot. But yeah, I was disappointed by his dunks, but you're right. Like, why would anyone want to do it if they're gonna get scrutinized the way he was? And we should be applauding him for even attempting it. But yeah,
Mm.
I don't know, man. The dunk contest has been disappointing for years, and we haven't had a good one. I feel like since uh,
Yeah.
you know, since obviously Levine and Gordon. What a
Mm.
special time that was. But yeah, I don't know how you fix it other than stars trying or yeah, not sure, man. It's almost like the Olympics where we send a team that's just okay and then we lose.
Right.
So
For the World
then
Cup or something. Yeah.
and then eventually we have to send our best players to
Hmm.
remind the world that we still are the best
Yeah.
team. It's just we don't care enough to go send our best players. So I don't know
Right.
if it'll eventually get to that where player, I think John Morant, I heard someone say that like John Morant would consider doing it next year, which I don't know how true that was. And maybe eventually we'll get to a point where players are even disappointed by the product that's on the floor, and maybe Edwards, Zion, John Morant all say, okay, we got to fix this bad boy and get in there. But that's a
That'd be
dream.
fun.
It would be fun. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, dude, if you had those three guys and I don't know, like I'm fine with Mac McClung. Like I also think it's weird to only have four players. Like if you're gonna have a couple of like no name people, you need more people than four, I think. And then just kind of open it up a little bit. So yeah, it's just I don't know, the format's weird and everything, the judging's weird. Um yeah. And I'm fine with Mac McClung doing it, but my issue with something you mentioned, I thought it was cool too, the Sabrina versus Steph, but I found myself wanting to just have them in the 3-point contest. Like, why couldn't Sabrina just be in there? If you're gonna have McClung be in the dunk contest, why couldn't Sabrina have just done the regular 3-point shootout? It would have been
she would
if
have
she
made
got
it to
if she got 26 and it was a
overtime.
5-way tie.
Yeah.
Also, could we just have four people in the finals instead of having a tiebreaker to eliminate one of the four?
Yeah, that was
Like,
kind of.
like that was weird too.
I
But
I I genuinely think the 3-point. I never understood why the 3-point contest goes from like what is it 8? Is it 8 to or 10 people? I don't know what it is,
it's
but
eight to
yeah, I,
four,
I
yeah,
generally
or
never
eight to
understood.
three, yeah.
Yeah, I never understood why it goes 8 to 3. Maybe go like 8 to 5, maybe even 8 to 6, down to 4 to 2. Like, I think it'd be a lot better
Well,
if it was like if it went slower, but they
mhm.
just go all the way from 8 to 3.
It doesn't seem like it, but it is very tiring to, to put up that many shots
Yeah,
in
I
a
guess
minute
that's
or
a good
whatever.
point.
So maybe stamina. Because you see that in like the home run derby a lot, where like a local tie-in, Julio Rodriguez hits like a ton of bombs, but then he doesn't win the home run derby because he like hit all his home runs early in the contest. So yeah, I don't know about that. I just don't see why you have to have a tiebreaker. Like if there's a bunch of people tied, you just don't have them all in the finals.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool if they would have
But
done
yeah,
that.
I was like, man, what if Sabrina would have done that in the contest and made the finals? That would have been really cool. And then we wouldn't be talking about, oh, see, girls can't compete or whatever, which is really stupid. But like, I mean,
Because Eric,
she,
they have their own 3-point contest, don't they? Don't
yeah,
they have their own though? I don't
yeah,
know.
they do. Well, that's where Sabrina, she killed it last year in
Yeah,
that
yeah, I remember.
contest, and then that was the idea to have her in this one. But yeah, I was just like, so Damian Lillard wins the 3-point contest. So awesome,
Let's
right?
go.
Our guy Dame. Uh
And
he
wins the All-Star Game MVP after he didn't
he,
deserve to be a starter, everyone said.
he
But
purposely misses his last or his fourth to last shots just to make it interesting, right? Are you convinced he did that on purpose?
no, I don't think he did it on
No,
purpose.
I know. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it comes down to the last ball. He hits it for the win and does the Dame time and all that. Really cool. But yeah, I think it would have been. I mean, it would have sucked if Dame lost because of this, but I kind of wish Steph and Sabrina were part of the 3-point contest and not a separate event.
Yeah, I get that point for sure. I feel like the NBA just wanted it to be a separate event, so it feels like the NBA did more for the All Star
Right.
weekend.
Yeah. Just a little
So
extra.
yeah,
And
so I feel like that's where it came from.
the skills challenge is kind of stupid. I don't
Yeah, it
know if
was
you like it or
different.
not. But
It was I going into it, I actually had no idea what the format even was. I was like, once the first game or once the first event was over, I thought that was it. I was like, oh, the Pacers won,
yeah,
cool, moving on to the
because
next
that's like
thing.
what the normal
Yeah, that's what it's
that
been
was.
every time.
Yeah.
And they did a bunch of other things with it. And Anthony Edwards just pretty much made a mockery of it. He didn't really care at all. And it's cool. As a lot of people are upset, and as much as he thinks that's like cool that this isn't a big deal to me, it definitely, as a fan, kind of sucked to see like he just really didn't care. He started shooting it left-handed, and
Yeah. And
uh,
it's
yeah,
one thing if you like come close to making it, but he was like shooting it off the top of the backboard and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
It's my thing is, dude, just don't freaking do it if you're gonna do it. Do that, right?
yeah,
Like, just
exactly.
don't do it. Like, it's one thing, but I mean, people gambled on it and stuff. Like, it might have been foolish to gamble on a
Oh no,
on a
I
skills
didn't. By the
challenge.
way, I didn't bet anything at All
Yeah,
Star Weekend.
well,
People are crazy for that.
like you're putting people who put money on that event. You're basically saying you don't care about that, which is fine. It's not his responsibility to do that. But like I said, just I mean, if the NBA has a problem, or like you said, all sports have a problem where their All Star game is boring or not really competitive or like intriguing or anything like that. Certainly, having someone just make a joke out of one of their events certainly does not help their situation.
Yeah. So yeah, the All Star Saturday, it's fine. It's okay. Obviously, the All Star game, people have their problems with it as well. The NBA has tried to make it interesting with captains, drafts. Obviously the 1 year in 2020 because of the tragic event of Kobe, it was an awesome one. You had Kyle Lowry taking charges. What a fun game that was. I remember
Yeah,
that, man. 2020 was a special All-Star game. But it's just like players aren't going to do that because I know people have brought up the idea of, well, what if the conference that wins gets finals, gets home court in the NBA finals? I'm like, that just like totally regulates the regular season. Like
and
I don't think that makes any sense either.
that only applies to like one or two players from
Yeah, that
the
too.
team that.
I know. So I had a good idea I actually saw on Twitter, and I don't know who it was that said it, but and again, this may not work either because these guys already paid a lot of money. But like money for every block and steal that's happens in the All Star game. Maybe that intrigues players to play
Mhm.
more defense, which maybe that's the solution. But again, do players care? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to go get injured, playing in the All-Star game. That's the worst outcome that could
Yeah.
possibly happen, especially, it's the All-Stars playing. Like, for contenders, you don't want to see your best
Yeah.
player get hurt during a meaningless game like that. So
Right.
I don't know if there ever is a solution to fixing it. It just probably is what it is. I know the NFL's resorted to like flag football and all these other dodgeball events and like that, which I've never really cared about NFL's Pro Bowl weekend or whatever. The NBA is still fun to watch. It was an okay All-Star Saturday night. Three-point contest was good. Dunk contest I was bored by. The skills challenge was okay. Edwards was disappointing. Not caring about it. The All-Star game still fun. Of course, because Dame, was hitting some half-court shots, and
Yeah.
as him being my favorite player, that made it more fun for me. I'm sure
Mhm.
other people that don't care about Dame, they're like, "Oh, this is
A lot of
stupid."
people
Like,
complaining.
yeah. So, I enjoyed it because of Dame, but I understand the complaints about what the All Star game is, and I'm just not sure there ever is a way to fix it. There may never be.
Yeah, I think you just kind of got to hope that it's okay. And I think being okay is fine. You're not going to make it great, like you mentioned. So just be okay with it being an event. It's more just an accomplishment to be an all star and just the pageantry of the weekend. I don't think the events themselves are as important as that stuff. So just kind of just realize that. But I thought they made a huge mistake. Um, I thought it was fine to take away the draft thing because I do like the East versus West thing, but the huge mistake I think was changing the scoring format back to the original
Mm.
because I kind of like the
Target
way they
score.
had it, the target score and all that kind of stuff. The Rising Stars, um, it made it a little more fun with that. Then you always have like a game winner every single quarter and stuff like that. And then yeah, I've heard some talks that they should do it like the Rising Stars, where there's four teams, like smaller teams, and then you could have a tournament like that. Maybe they do something like that, but yeah, I just think you just got to kind of live with it. And I know David, or not David Stern, I don't know, Adam Silver was really disappointed. He had promised that this All Star game was going to be awesome and everyone's going to care about it. It didn't really play out that way, but I just think you can't promise that. Like it's an exhibition game. You're never going to um, make it 100% buy-in from all the players, and you get it. I thought they did a great job making. I was skeptical about the in-season tournament, but I thought they did a really good job of that, and it seemed like the players cared about it. But once again, it's an exhibition, so it's not a regular season game or a playoff game or anything like that. So I thought it was fun. You just got to hope that players care about it, and some of them do, some of them don't. But yeah, it was fun watching Dame. Um,
Halliburton was fun too. The 5 straight threes in the first was awesome.
Halliburton was awesome. Carl Anthony Towns scores 50, and like no one's talking about
I know
him.
it was like so low key too. Like at one point, I didn't even realize how much. Like I was like, man, Cat is scoring the basketball a lot. But then people were like, or they were saying he's got like 40. I was like, damn, I didn't realize he had that many points. I know he was scoring a
Yeah,
lot, but
yeah. For a long time, Dame was the leading scorer with like 33, and then he went
and
to the bench, and then Cat just
and
started
Jalen
scoring like
Brown
crazy.
did pretty good too.
Yeah, Jalen Brown had a big game. The aforementioned Jalen Brown.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, so it was really cool seeing Dame get that MVP. Kind of made it his weekend. Um, and the hope for me is that he gets that advice from Shaq to go be mean and take control of the team when he gets back to Milwaukee. Just hope he has a better into the season
oh,
and into the
absolutely.
playoffs than
I
he's
hope so
had
too.
regular season. I hope this propels him to that.
Absolutely. But
Did you have anything else for this episode?
I don't think so. I think that's
No.
it. Other than I know people have brought up the idea of a one-on-one tournament. I just can't
Oh,
imagine the players caring about that enough, or even if they did, like the scrutiny that players would get losing to like.
right.
Can you imagine like Dame versus Russell Westbrook? There's already so many, so much beef between like fans on Twitter with Russ and Dame, and or Steph and Dame or whatever. And man, it'd be a war zone on Twitter. It would be fun, but
Yeah.
the scrutiny that would be there for the players if they lost, I
Yeah.
think would be crazy.
I like the King of the Hill, where it's just like you get 3 dribbles and you just got to try to score on someone.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know how
cool
you
too.
make that into an actual contest, but and like they were playing knockout and warm ups and stuff. Like I think those kind of things are fun.
That would be cool
Uh,
too. A knockout in the NBA
uh,
would be awesome.
yeah. You
Although
saw
you assume they would make almost every free throw or 3-point shot, whatever.
Jokic like knocks knocked Luca's ball out of the way and then scored and knocked him out. It was fun. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think they did just one other I don't know. It probably have to be Sunday before the game, but just try to get the all-stars, the actual all-stars into some sort of competition and make it mandatory or something. I don't know. Um like like I said, you're never gonna make it 100% where they care about it, but just something to kind of liven it up a little bit.
yeah. And then also tip off the game when it's supposed to start. Like it didn't start for like I don't even know. I was just like waiting for the game to start, and then it just like wasn't starting forever. I'm like, okay, this is weird, but whatever. So
I think JJ Redick went off on that today about how the NBA has a problem with that. Like if you say it's 7 o'clock tip, it needs to start at 7, not I think it was
TNT does good with
42
that
minutes or something.
too. That's the weird part because like I feel like every time a game starts on TNT at that time, it actually tips off at that time. ESPN, forget about it. If it's on ESPN, it's not starting till like 20 to 30 minutes after tip or whatever, or after the time it's promised. But yeah,
And we still couldn't do a Dame ceremony before the game, man.
unfortunate.
All right. Well, I think that's it for. Did you have any crushing it? We kind of threw them in there, but
No,
it's
I
been
don't.
it's
I
been
didn't
a
have
week
any.
since the games
Yeah.
that mattered. So we'll get back to that when we have less to talk about next time. And then once again, go ahead and check out Crushables YouTube channel. Go subscribe to Blazers Uprise main channel if you haven't already. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel and are enjoying the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate all of you. And leave a comment on your thoughts on anything we talked about, trade deadline, all-star weekend. Brady and I both love reading all your comments, so make sure you do that. And hope everyone has a good day. Thank you again, Brady. And until next time, you want to say it?
Peace out. Go Blazers.